What was it with these women and their shawls in the deadly summer heat? The woman in front was heavy and swayed from side to side as she walked. Behind her was a much thinner and younger girl. Shotu, who is at the door? Daddy called out. It is Rano Ji and her daughter, Shotu replied. Ah, Rano, come to the living room, dear. We are here. I stepped away from the screen door as the two females approached. The mother slowed as she reached me and pulled down her glasses to the tip of her nose, scanning me from head to toe. I matched her stare at every point until she pushed up her glasses and marched on towards Daddy and Jazz. I watched her quietly, noticing her repeated glances in my direction. While the mother had already been annoying, the daughter was quite different. After saying hello to both Daddy and Jazz, she had quietly taken a seat in a chair at the far corner of the room. She was keeping herself busy with a book that she had picked up from a nearby shelf. Was she shy? Had she not noticed me? Perhaps she did not care to notice. Rano, this is my granddaughter, Isha, my Delaware's youngest, Daddy said proudly in Punjabi. She has come from Canada. Really? All the way from Canada? It is nice to finally see someone from your son's family. How long will she be staying? Her tone was careful and inquisitive. I already didn't like her. She is to travel to Kiratpur. After that, we will see. So, how is everyone at home? Daddy asked. Oh, it is wonderful, Ranu exclaimed. My daughter has received a magnificent proposal for marriage. Sardar Dalip Singh has asked for her hand for his son Dea. Really? Or young Dea? Daddy said without much surprise. She flashed the daughter a look that suggested she had already been expecting this proposal. Ignoring Daddy's response, Ranu carried on. Oh, Daddy, Dea is such a striking young man now. My daughter will go into such a rich and respected family. My heart is filled with joy. Oh, Daddy, Dea is such a... Oh, my apologies. As the mother continued in her praise, the daughter carried on reading. She paid no attention to the ongoing discussion regarding her marriage. Meanwhile, Rana once again shifted her focus to me. She pulled her glasses down again to the tip of her nose and stared at me. And what of your granddaughter, Daddy? Isha, Daddy looked at me. Oh, she's young. I'm sure her time will come when it is right. I see, replied Rano. Well, she still has time to fix herself up. Fix myself up? Excuse me, I asked, deciding that it was time I spoke up. Oh, child, you know you are so thin. Do girls in Canada eat anything? And look at your hair. If you are to be a beautiful Indian bride, you must grow that hair now. Just look. So I have to pause here to comment on the dramatic irony at play. So, I don't know, remember that dramatic irony is when the audience knows something that the other characters might not know. So, Ranoji is not aware of Isha's disdain for Indians and the Indian culture. She assumes that one, Isha wants to get married, and two, she wants to be considered a beautiful Indian bride. But we know that's not the case. That couldn't be further from the truth. So continuing, oh, we cannot criticize children who have been raised in different countries, Jazz interrupted. Besides, I am sure that Isha and her family can decide what is right for her. You need not worry. Just as I was about to add my 2 cents, Jazz gave me a stern nod, suggesting I should let the moment pass. I clenched my teeth and suppressed the harsh words that were sitting impatiently at the tip of my tongue. Of course, Rano sighed. Well, should get going. It is late. I just wanted to inform you of our wonderful news. Oh, Rana, you have not had anything to eat or drink yet. How can you go like this? Daddy said without much force. No, no, Daddy, next time. Come, Sumida, dear. Say bye to Daddy and Jazz. The mother left without another look at me, and I didn't mind at all. The daughter surprisingly stopped at the screen door and nervously turned in my direction. She had a tanned brown complexion, but her most extraordinary feature was her clearly defined unibrow. "I am sorry about your father," she said in perfect English, her voice so soft that I almost had to strain my ears just to hear her. "Jazz told me about his passing." "Yeah, I'm sorry too," I replied. "My Sumi, where have you gotten stuck? Come on," Rano barked in the distance. The daughter gave a nervous smile and hurried out the door to catch up with her mother. I was surprised at how different the two were. One was obnoxious and rude, while the other was timid and sweet. "Isha," called Daddy, making her way towards the staircase. "Do not listen to that Rano. She talks more than she thinks." "Yeah, I can tell," I replied, following her upstairs. "Good, but her daughter is a very sweet child. She is your age. Her name is Sumida, but we lovingly call her Sumi. While you are here, you should spend some time with her to be around kids your age. If you are with Sumi, then I will not worry about you, okay?" "Sure," I said, though I had no real intention of hanging around very long in this city. "Good. Now get some rest. See you in the morning," she said as she turned into her bedroom. "Good night, Daddy," I replied as I made my way into my own room. I went straight for the bed and fell back onto it. A whole boring day had passed, and I still had not seen a Kant. Oh, I miss you, Canada, my girls, BC, fast food, pizza, my bed, Johnny. As I counted away my sorrows, my eyes became heavy, and I slowly dozed off. The next morning, when I opened my eyes, I found a hot cup of tea next to the bed. I picked it up, wondering why anyone would serve me in bed while I slept. "Ma'am, have you finished tea?" asked a small, quivering voice. Would you like more?" I followed the voice to the foot of my bed. There stood a short, dark-skinned, skinny little girl. Her gaze was lowered and fully concentrated on the floor, as though staring at her feet was the most important thing in the world. Her hands were behind her back, and she didn't make a move until I responded. "Excuse me," is all I could come up with. "More tea, ma'am?" She asked again without moving her gaze away from her feet. She looked absolutely terrified of me. I didn't get it. I mean, I was pretty fit as an athlete, and I was known to get into a few rough situations on the field. But off the field, no one had ever reacted to me in fear. "Oh, no, no, thank you. I'm going to get up actually and shower and stuff," I said, quickly sipping the warm tea and placing the cup back where I had found it. "Okay, I will leave you alone then, and make sure that food is ready for you," she said, quickly turning to leave. "Hey, wait," I called out. "Yes? Who are you?" I asked. "I mean, why are you serving me tea in my room? Why don't you look at me?" "My name is Sheila," she replied, still refusing to look at me. "I work in this house. Daddy G has ordered that I look after your needs in this house. I'm sorry, ma'am, if I have upset you." "No, no, don't worry about it. So, why haven't I seen you before now?" I asked. "I had gone home to Calcutta to see my family. I just came back this morning, ma'am." "I see. Now, tell me, why aren't you looking at me directly?" I lightened my tone and tried to sound a bit more welcoming. Her fear was discomforting. "Ma'am, oh, come on, raise your gaze. That's it, higher. Don't worry, there's nothing exciting going on with your feet or this floor, for that matter." "No, now, looking at me, there's excitement," I said, smiling. "I'm sorry, ma'am, for the first time I will be working for a NRI. You are from Canada, yes?" I was not sure if you would appreciate me looking at you. "Sorry, NRI?" I asked, cutting her off. "Oh yes, non-resident Indian, NRI," she replied. "Let's get one thing straight, Sheila. I'm not an Indian. My nationality is Canadian, okay?" "Sorry, ma'am, And look me in the eyes when you speak to me. Don't be so scared. It's weird." "Yes." "All right, I should get dressed. You can relax. I don't really need anything, but thanks for the tea." "Yes, ma'am." I headed for the shower as Sheila collected my teacup and quietly made her way to the hallway. A servant? I could get used to that. When I walked into the dining room, a plate full of food was, of course, waiting for me. Sheila was very efficient. Jazz walked in and out of the kitchen as usual, preparing meals for the day, while Bagat and his school friends met up in the courtyard. Daddy was doing her prayers in the living room, but today there was an addition. Beside Daddy sat a tall individual in brown sandals and white pants and shirt. The morning paper was obscuring the top half of the person. However, the large muscular arms and legs hinted that whoever was behind that paper was definitely a man. Suddenly I felt like Sheila, but why should I? My heart started racing. Could it be a Kant? Uncertain if I should approach Daddy and the stranger or sit quietly and wait until I was noticed, I stood in the same position and tried to get a glimpse of the man. Probably it was a Kant. It would be about time that he showed up. Isha! Jazz was standing over the table holding a plate of food. What are you doing standing there? Come join me. I quickly turned on my heels and followed suit. As I walked towards the table, I could hear the rustle of the newspaper behind me. Yet no voice followed. Did you have a good sleep? Jazz asked. Yeah, it was fine, I replied. Throughout our meal, I glanced back and forth between Jazz and the stranger, yet she made no attempt to introduce me to him. Daddy continued her prayers, and the strange man continued reading his paper. It was only after Daddy put down her prayer book that she called out and broke the silence. Isha, Isha, child, come here quick. I walked over and stood behind the sofa that she was seated on. It can't, she began. Put the paper down and meet your sister. It was Ikant. He slowly lowered his newspaper and revealed his face to me. I was shocked to see how closely he resembled my father. He was a big, muscular man. He had a black beard that reached down to his chest, and he too wore a turban. So, from our background research assignment, you know that the turban is an important symbol in the Sikh religion. His long and narrow nose, large round eyes, and thin lips all contained traces of my father. The resemblance was uncanny. Isha, this is Ikant. I am so happy that you two are finally meeting. Daddy continued with a smile stretching from ear to ear. Hi, I said, offering my hand. He studied me for a while, then instead of shaking my hand, he folded his hands before me. In India, we greet people with respect and in our traditional way of putting our hands together. I guess they do not teach you this in Canada. His voice was deep as I had imagined it to be, but I sensed the disapproval in his tone, and that didn't sound the least bit comforting. Last time I checked, a handshake was considered quite respectful, I retorted as I withdrew my hand. Is all he can't muster before he opened up his paper once again and became lost in the day's news as though the little exchange between us had never happened. Was this it? This was how we were going to meet for the first time ever? Was this all he had to say to me? Weeks of wondering what this moment would be like, what we would say to each other, and this was it? We had a brief and rude exchange on the correct method for greeting someone, then silence. He had made no mention of my father, no show of emotion or grief over his passing. Then again, why would he? Dad was his uncle in reality, and Ekant was a son born out of the crime of rape. But hadn't Jazz mentioned that Ekant viewed my dad as his very own father? So really, what was this attitude? In any case, it didn't matter. I was here for a reason, and I had to accomplish my task, regardless of what he might think. So, when can we set out for Kiratpur? I asked, pretending that his rude behavior had gone unnoticed. Kiratpur, he asked, almost sounding surprised. Oh yeah, Kiratpur, you know, for Dad's ashes, I replied. Impossible. What is? I asked, confused by his curt response. Travel to Kiratpur is impossible at the moment. What? How come? Kiratpur is hours away. There is no safe passage right now. Travel is not an option. So what if it's hours away? We jump in a car, drive there. Simple. I don't see the big problem, I said, growing impatient with the sudden refusal. No one else had mentioned anything regarding unsafe passage to Kirtpur in the last couple of days. It was hard to believe that Ekant knew more than anyone else did. And again, because of our background research, we know that this is run about the time when Operation Blue Star had taken place. So that's why Ekant is saying it's not safe. It has only been a few weeks since Operation Blue Star. Traveling to Kirpur right now is not safe. The social and political climate is too fragile. It's just not safe to travel. So I'm sorry if you wait. What is Operation Blue Star? I asked innocently. Ekant abruptly put down his paper. What is Operation Blue Star? He asked, mocking my voice. He stood up and looked at me with what appeared to be pure disgust. What had I said? What is Operation Blue Star? He repeated. Daddy, are you sure she's Delaware uncle's daughter? Are you sure Choto didn't make a mistake? Is she even sick? He questioned, glaring at Daddy, then again at me. I just stood and watched in confusion as his anger grew with each passing moment. His sudden reaction was alarming and didn't make any sense. What's the problem? I asked, getting defensive. So I don't know what it is. Why are you getting so angry? I don't understand what this Operation Blue, Blue shit, Blue, Blue Star, Blue Star, he roared. Every Sikh knows what Operation Blue Star is. It is a mark on our heritage, on our very foundation. How dare you be so ignorant? Chill out. So this is some religious nonsense. Now what does that have to do with me going to Kirdpur? Then getting back to Canada, I asked, still not sure what his exact reservation was. Instead of enlightening me, however, Ekant crumbled up his morning paper and tossed it onto the table. It was unbelievable. He was actually fuming. If I looked closer, I thought I might see steam escaping from his ears. But I didn't really care. I just wanted to get to Kiratpur, so I just stared blankly at him. He turned around and stormed out the screen door, mumbling something under his breath. I watched in surprise as he paced back and forth outside in the courtyard, spitting out words. To an outsider, he would have looked like a ward patient. Jazz simply shook her head and sat down beside me. I looked at Daddy, hoping for an explanation. This is a very sensitive subject for Ekant, she said. It is for all of us. For the family, I asked. No, child. It is for all Sikhs, she answered. What is Operation Blue Star, Daddy? On June 4th, just a few weeks ago, the Indian Army attacked or Harminder Sahib, or as many call it, the Golden Temple. This is why I'm showing you a picture of the Golden Temple. And in Amritsar. Thousands of pilgrims were there, and most were killed. The holiest shrine for Sikhs had been nearly destroyed. People say the complex still stands, but it is no longer what it was. Gunfire, tanks, cannons, all have ripped it apart. Our most respected and comprehensive library containing many original transcripts from our gurus has burned down. What is worse, the oppression continues. The army still maintains its control over it. There must be a reason for all of this. The government and army argue that they had no choice. They say they needed to bring or terrorists who had taken refuge in the complex. The problem is the army wasn't clear on who it considered a terrorist. Some called the men under Saint Jarnail Singh Bindrale, who was a spiritual leader for many Sikhs, terrorists, but they never harmed anyone. Under him, many Sikh people became baptized. He brought back people's devotion to the religion in a healthy manner. In the end, politics is politics, she said with a loud sigh. All this talk about terrorists and separation, it is to make Sikhs seem like aggressors. They are making it appear like something that it is not. Punjab needs better representation and an equal share of the resources it provides to the rest of the nation. Along the way, it turned into a discussion about a new Punjabi homeland. Sikhs led the fight, and somehow it all turned upside down. Regardless of how it happened, I am sure that there was a choice. How can you be sure? I persisted. I was baffled at how a simple question had turned into a political discussion. Sikhs are warriors, Isha. We have fought many wars during the time of our gurus, and we make strong, principled soldiers. But we fight for justice. It is a cardinal rule for our religion. So it is understandable why the so-called militants devoted to Saint Benjuali persisted for their cause. Now, not every Sikh agrees with that. What matters most is the principle that builds the foundation of a Sikh's fight or cry for battle, and that is justice. So I strongly believe that no Sikh would willingly sacrifice a holy shrine like the Harminder Sahib without leaving a choice. That Sikh, like every Sikh, has to answer to God one day or another. But maybe there really wasn't a choice. There is always a choice, Daddy said, quickly cutting me off. Can you imagine anyone carelessly attacking the Muslim holy shrine in Mecca or the Roman Catholic's Vatican in this day and age? This was not just a golden complex. It was the heart of millions of people. It was the soul of a great doctrine. It survived British rule and partition. When there are political disagreements, you do not attack the ancient foundation of a world religion. You do not burn scriptures that have a place in civilization. You do not mercilessly kill thousands of innocent pilgrims. It is a sin that was committed for what? Land resources, pride. Daddy dropped her shoulders and clutched the prayer book in her hands. When will man give more importance to the soul of a human being? But Daddy, to allow a completely new territory, a Punjabi homeland, I mean, that would have shaken up the country, no? I pointed out. Would it really? A separate Punjab was already promised during the time of partition. And from our background research assignment, you guys should remember what this partition is, right? It was the partition between or among India, Pakistan, India and Pakistan. Would it really? A separate Punjab was already promised during the time of partition. India just has not delivered on that promise. But of course, they do not want to give up that land now. Besides, separation is not what Punjabis or Sikhs were calling for. Later it turned into a separatist discussion because the central government had already painted Sikhs as separatists. The demands were for greater equality to address diplomatically the issues that concerned the land. For example, Sikhs are not even legally recognized. We are still categorized as Hindus. Reforms are needed. But through discussion and appeals, as was the initial course of action. However, the government did not allow it. Why not? Because Punjab feeds the country. That's why, yelled Ekant. He had ventured back into the room and was standing over the table with his arms firmly crossed over his chest. Punjab is rich in resources, he continued. The vast and bountiful farmlands, the 5 rivers that run through it, the clean air, the beautiful climate. The rest of India is heavily polluted or barren compared to Punjab. There is no way the central government will give up its control. Instead, they want to keep a tight leash over it, subjecting Punjabis and farmers to an unequal status. But all of this could have been debated. It was not a reason to attack Amritsar. Debate, discussion, and choice are supposed to be the core of any democratic nation. So why attack Sikhs by destroying their holiest shrine? I asked. I wanted to know more. Ekant's erratic behavior suddenly made me very interested in the topic. Because they want to completely destroy the morale and the soul of Sikhs. Under Saint Bindrad, Sikhs were becoming unified. Since the day of the attack, reports have been coming in of forced disappearances. Sikhs are being randomly picked up, jailed, and beaten. Innocents are being branded as terrorists, regardless if they are 10 years old or 50.